Host of Straight Up with Sturg on WCCP 104.9. So, Sturg, thanks for being with us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
I hope you guys are enjoying this summer-like day after some of the crap we put up with.
Oh, I know. It's about time. I mean, 50 degrees. Feels like 80 for the past couple of days. But, well, first off, just tell us a little bit, listeners, about what you do with 104.9 and you're live every 7 to 9, Monday through Friday. And have you had everything on the menu at Smoke on the Water?
Pretty much, yeah. I can recite that menu, and as a matter of fact, they're adding a couple of things to it here in the next couple of months, which is going to make me happy. Try something different, but yeah, basically, if Clemson Athletics is not on the air, I'm at Smoke on the Water doing my show, and quite frankly, guys, I think I got one of the best gigs in the upstate, and as well as be able to co-host the Tiger pregame show and do some work with Coach Danny Ford. Life's pretty good.
Right. Well, I mean, just talk a little bit about looking far back, the 2013 season for Clemson, obviously, with you being on the station, the flagship station for Clemson Athletics. Just sum it up, and you being around Clemson your whole life, seeing the good and bad days. Just sum up 2013, if you could, for us.
I think it's a step forward. You know, there's still some. You know, the Ohio State win in the Orange Bowl helped ease some of the wounds from a fifth consecutive loss to South Carolina. But, you know, you gotta realize this is the golden age of South Carolina, and this almost kind of lets you understand what they've been through for 100 years now, and you don't like it. And this year is big in 2014. I think Connor Shaw was the greatest quarterback ever at South Carolina, and I think that's evidence. And then the blowout against Florida State. But yeah, it's still a young football program. There's a reason that there was just, 12, 13 seniors on this team. Anytime you can put 11-win seasons out there on the board, that's a move forward. But now, listen, you got to deal with your two nemesis, and that's Florida State and South Carolina.
All right, Mark, thanks for joining us. Michael Newton here. You wrap up 2013 season. Let's talk a little bit about 2014 now. Obviously, the big news of the last couple weeks is the schedule being released.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get some quick impressions of the schedule, if you would.
Well, the first thing I did is I kind of sat down and I looked at it real quickly and then put it away for an hour and then came back and studied it. The one thing that I don't really what I'll typically do is kind of look at it as a whole and then look for that trap game. Now, fortunately, with Clemson here in the last 3 years, those trap games haven't been an issue. I don't really see a trap game. It's definitely a front-loaded schedule with, opening at Georgia and then going on the road to Florida State. But once you get past that, there's a lot of room to grow. And I'll say it right now. If you can go 500 in those two games against Georgia and Florida State on the road, that sets the table up for another nice run in 2014.
Right. And once again, we're joined by Mark Sturgis, host of Straight Up with Sturg on 104.9. Talk a little bit about Dabo's contract he just signed in the last couple of weeks. What do you think about it? And the only thing that kind of worries me a little bit about it is, Radakovich, great athletic director, but he also signed Paul Johnson to a long-term. I know I'm not making any comparisons, but just the long-term deals. Just talk a little bit about that if you could.
Well, I think he's earned it. I believe it was also reactionary to what was going on in the coaching carousel at the time. Was there going to be a situation where Texas actually, Dabo became a fallback candidate, which that wasn't the case. I think he's earned it. Listen, I mean, what can you say? 3 double-digit win seasons in a row. This year's huge for this program because they've been able to do it. I'm going to be honest with you, with a little bit of smoke and mirrors, if you will. Now this program matures next year. They ought to be physical. There'll be more upperclassmen on the roster than underclassmen. And again, with all the good things that have gone on in this program, I still think you've got to somehow find a way to be successful against South Carolina next year.
Right, and we just had Michael Burns talk a little recruiting. Talk about that's becoming really important in college football now. Talk about the job that you think that he's done this year, bringing in some of Deshaun Watson and some of these other really big name guys. I think once they fully develop, they're going to be unbelievable superstars here.
Yeah, I mean the future at the skill position is set, and especially if Alvin Kamara transfers in at running back from Alabama, then you're set really at wide receiver, quarterback, and running back. I think next year you have to put a focus on offensive line. That's the one hiccup that I still see with this program, and some of it is not of their own doing. I mean, name another program in college football that lost not one but two offensive linemen to career-ending injuries last year. I think the offensive line's getting better. I just still want to see a little bit more depth develop because I'm a game manager. Give me a good offensive line and a good quarterback or a game manager at quarterback, I'll take my chances any day of the week.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree 100%. What can you say about Chad Morris's offense perhaps changing, if it changes at all, now that Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins, Martavis Bryant have left for NFL careers? And if it does change, how does that depend on who the starter will be in this quarterback race?
Well, I think you nailed it right there. It's going to be dependent on the starter. I'll tell you this much. You're going to see next season more of what Chad Morris wants to do as an offensive coordinator. You know, he adapted to Taj Boyd the last 3 years as much as Taj adapted to Chad Morris. A running game at quarterback is a lot more of what he wants in that offense. I still think you see Cole Stout go between the hedges and start as a senior. I think that's what unless if all things are equal or just a little bit, I think you start the senior in that game just for, Cole has earned his sense of stability, if you will. He's calm and collected. My fear is that Kelly comes out in that game amped up and throws about 5 balls up into the 10th row of the stands, just trying to get him calmed down. And but I do think Chad Kelly next year is the ultimate answer for what Chad Morris wants to do offensively.
Right, and it feels like he may run a little bit more of that read option.
That's right.
Kind of like Malzahn does a little bit. But talk a little bit about what do you think that, Taj and Sammy moving on, a remarkable, I know it was a month ago, but one heck of an Orange Bowl Sammy had. Just talk about, his legacy at Clemson and kind of laid the groundwork for other wide receivers that want to come here, and you're seeing it with this class and the future, already talking about 2015, 2014 is not over. Talk about that a little bit if you could.
Well, I mean, what a way to go out. And, I to answer some people's questions, I heard this a lot in the week following the Orange Bowl. Why did they not do that more coming down the stretch against South Carolina? First of all, people fail to realize Sammy Watkins was dinged up in the second half of the season. I think it was evident. Number two, you could do that in the Orange Bowl because it was his last game for the Clemson Tigers. But he has proven that you can come in, especially at wide receiver, and be successful as a true freshman. As a matter of fact, last night I was reading an article. He was named Clemson had 2 of the top 15 most impressive true freshman seasons. Sammy Watkins was listed, and then I don't know if y'all remember a former linebacker by the name of Anthony Simmons from Spartanburg. He was also on that 15 best true freshman in college football list that I saw last night.
Right. We're joined by Mark Sturgis from WCCP 104.9. And let's switch gears a little bit to basketball. Mm-hmm. It's been a tough road trip so far for the basketball team. Yeah. And it only gets harder as we go up to Syracuse and Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. We get one road game against Florida State and then a quick trip home for Georgia Tech. Talk about what this team needs to do to turn the season back around.
Survive this. When this schedule came out, I looked at this 6-game stretch where 5 were on the road, and with a young team, I knew this was going to be killer for them. This kind of stretch can make a season, but more often than not, it's going to break a team's season, which is probably what's going to happen to Clemson. They got to look at this in the future. 5 out of 6 on the road like this is crazy. And especially look at the competition they're playing. Pittsburgh, Syracuse, at North Carolina. These aren't easy games, so it's going to end up breaking this team's season, I'm afraid. I still think they can get to the NIT. The reality of it is, guys, there's 3 juniors on this basketball team that they have to lean on for leadership. And that's not necessarily fair to them as they're still figuring out who they are as players. And that's the void when it comes on the road. Is there's no senior you can look in his eyes and go, hey, guys, we got this. Let's keep. But just remember, things aren't as bad as they look, and they aren't as good as they seem when they were 4-1 in the ACC.
Right. I agree. And Coach Brad Brownell, he was thought to maybe be on the hot seat. Got a big win versus Duke. Started the season out well. What do you think his future is going forward, just based on what's going on right now?
I like Coach Brownell. I understand some of the frustrations that are going on, but quite frankly, I've been to 8 games this year. I see what he's doing. They're more athletic. They're taller. They are young, no doubt about it. But you add the fact that he finally has a couple of legitimate recruits coming into this program next year, a legitimate ACC recruit. I think Clemson fans got to be patient because, quite frankly, you give me an alternative, a realistic alternative. If you fire Brad Brownell, who are you going to go out there and get that's any better?
All right, and Mark, thanks again for being with us. Just a real quick question. How many times have you seen the Rolling Stones in concert, and what's the, I guess a couple questions. What's the best dish over there at Smoke on the Water? And also, how did you end up going to Alabama? You've probably been asked that 1,000 times. I was reading your bio.
Right.
But just tell us, the listeners, about that. We really appreciate the time, and thanks again.
No problem. Well, first of all, I grew up in a Clemson family. My dad's on the board of engineers at Clemson. All my brothers graduated from Clemson. All my nephews graduated from Clemson or will be graduating. I wanted to major in communications in the 1980s, and guess what? You didn't go to Clemson, and quite frankly, you didn't go to anywhere here in the state of South Carolina for that. It just wasn't offered. As far as the Rolling Stones, I'm fortunate. I've seen them 6 times. I like some of the obscure stuff from the late 60s and early 70s. You probably figured that out in that email that you sent me. And then finally, hands down, the best, you can't go wrong with anything on the menu at Smoke on the Water. You can get prime rib done in a lot of restaurants, but I promise you this much, you won't get it done on the smoker like they do at Smoke on the Water. It is absolutely fantastic. Brings a whole different flavor profile to the dish.
Real quick, talk a little bit, last question, about the Coach's Cabana. Listen to the Barry Switzer interview, and then we'll let you get out of it. But we appreciate the time, and we'll definitely get up to Smoke on the Water and check that out.
Coach's Cabana, we'll be relaunching that in 2013, and I think some financial issues. It was launched by Barry Switzer 2 years ago, this past year. Coach Ford and I did it for Clemson. They had Johnny Majors at Tennessee, Ray Goff at Georgia, Pat Jones, a bunch of old coaches. And what they're doing is, it's kind of secondhand broadcast. They want you to tweet us questions like you're in a bar scene, which Coach Ford and I are really good at doing that, and just kind of follow along with the game while it's on television. You can follow along with us on your iPad or laptop, even your smartphone. And Coach Ford learning the social media thing. He did a really good job with it this year. I look forward to what 2014 is going to bring.
Well, Mark, thanks again for joining us on Shaking the Southland.